Hey everyone! Today we'll be covering the new maps and game improvements coming to Company of Heroes 3 with the Scarlet Bison update, which is releasing on November 27th. Next week, we'll be releasing several showcast videos looking at the new battle groups coming with the Endure and Defy DLC pack, so stay tuned for that. And finally, on November 25th, 2 days before the release of Scarlet Bison, we'll be hosting another Balance Fireside Chat where we'll go in-depth on multiplayer balance and all those other changes with the design team. So let's get right into it. All right, now we are joined by Eric Roble, Design Director on Company of Heroes 3, and of course, two new special guests. So, Eric, can you quickly introduce yourself and tell us what you do on the team?
Hey, I'm Eric Roble, the Design Director on Company Heroes 3, and gosh, what do I do here? I mean, I get to help out with the designs, make sure the quality levels are high, and figure out the design direction of what types of content and when do we release it, all that kind of good stuff. So
okay, amazing. So two new special inclusions on the Company of Heroes 3 team. These are probably names that are well known in the community, but I'll let them introduce themselves again. So let's start with Farah. Can you tell us who you are and maybe some of your background in the community?
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Ferenc Galat, but probably most of you know me under the name of Ferigi. I have been playing with the Company of Heroes franchise since 2017, and during that time, I have participated in many tournaments, some of which I have been lucky enough to win. Since July, I have been using the knowledge I have gained throughout the years to help the Relic team to make the best Company of Heroes game ever.
Okay, that's great. And last but certainly not least, Dumais.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Philip Dumais, but I go with my online name, which is Dumais, which is my last name. I've been playing Company of Heroes since 2007, so I started off with Opposing Fronts, and ever since then, Co has always been my favorite franchise. I've been part of the team since July, and essentially I'm here to help out the studio and kind of guide the team with some balance suggestions and to help out with new content.
Okay, amazing. So very, very glad to have you all here. Eric, maybe you can talk about why we want to bring these two gents into the team, what they're kind of helping us do, and what sort of the long-term goal for their inclusion is here.
yeah, I mean, really excited to get these top talents to join us. They're both incredible at the game and also like really fun people and easy to work with. So it's been really helpful on our end having such amazing, talented people here. And in terms of why we brought them in, on previous projects that I've worked on, we've had this group of really high-level players to give us feedback. So their job is basically like play the game all day, every day, and give us, let us know like how we're doing, basically. And so, especially since we're building all this new content, generally our designers have to spend most of their time in design discussions and actually building the content, and we don't have as much time to actually play test it, right? So we wanted people who could just like 100% focus their time and effort on playing it and making sure not only is it balanced, but is it fun, right? Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't, who cares if it's a 50% perfect balanced game if it's not, you don't have cool, awesome things you can do, right?
Okay. Yeah. Who cares if it's balanced? You heard it here first, right? Right from the horse's mouth.
Balance is overrated.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, Eric. Like you said, the team is really, really hard at work, designing a lot of content, building it. And, if it's not fun, if it's not exciting, nothing else really matters, right? So yes, we want it to be fair and balanced, and we want win rates to be, within a certain margin of each other. But I think that's where Farah and Dumais come in to help us validate a lot of those decisions and a lot of the changes that we're making. So can we maybe get into some of like the nuts and bolts of like, what is the actual day-to-day like with their inclusion on the team?
Yeah, and so one of the things to mention is like they were on the community council before this, right? Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason we wanted them is because they had given us such good feedback there. But the community council, we're not able to meet with them like every single day. They have jobs and lives and stuff like that, right? So we get incredible feedback from those people. But it's spaced out pretty far, right? And so the benefit of bringing them into the team is that we can have these really rapid iteration cycles. So we can have a playtest with them, they identify some problems, we can make we can discuss those, come up with a bunch of changes, and then the very next day they're then playing that new set of changes, and then they're getting a whole bunch of reps in there, and then they can give us feedback, and then the day after that we already have a new build, right? So we're able to really rapidly change and improve and update the game.
Yeah. So maybe I'll throw it over to Fergie or Dumais here. Maybe you can speak to what that process has been like for you, maybe since you joined the team. I'll start with Dumais.
Yeah, I think honestly the pipeline works really well. Like Eric said, Fergie and I will start off for a day. We'll play like 3 to 4 hours, in the morning, and we write down our notes. So if there's like games that go on for like sometimes we have games that are like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And usually if the game was really good, we'll write some like notes down. We'll have a discussion between each other. Okay, let's try this. Like, I'm going to change up my build slightly. Try this. We're not always doing like the same builds. We're kind of changing it up from time to time. But sometimes, the dev team will be like, hey, we wanted you to specifically test out like this specific build because we know like it's, it could be a little frustrating to play against. It could be very difficult to handle. So play test this and like see what you guys can come up with. And then at the end of the day, we have a meeting with the design team. We'll throw some numbers around. We'll throw some suggestions. They iterate on it, they implement it, and the next day we have a brand new build and we can start it. So that's honestly a really cool thing. It's not like when you're outside of the studio and you're like, oh, well, we'll see like what they change in 3 months. Whereas Fergie and I, we have changes like on the day, which can be a little tricky sometimes when you start playing the game in live. You're like, oh yeah, it's true. They don't have the changes that we had. So I'm like, this doesn't work.
What about you, Fergie? What's that sort of been like from your perspective coming in and working with the team?
Luckily, Dumais and I work really well together, so we are usually on the same page. So this makes us work like really easy because we don't have to like argue with each other. We know what we want, and the goal is in front of us. So it is pretty clear. And what can I say? Like this is a dream come true to work on a game that I was always passionate about, and I am still passionate. So putting that energy and love to the game that I've been playing since a long time, I don't know if I can really like really describe with words what it really feels like.
Yeah, no, well, it's coming through loud and clear. So that's fantastic to hear. So Eric, I know before we jumped on this call here, you were talking about some of the things that including sort of this type of process for design and balance and testing kind of gives us better confidence in a lot of the changes that we're making and allows us to sort of hit a higher level of polish. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah. So on the polish front, because these guys are playing so many games all day long, we're just getting a lot more eyes on the game, and these are exceptional eyes as well, I would say, because these guys are such high-level players, and there's so many mechanics and so much detail to whenever one thing is slightly off, like they'll be able to notice it immediately, which when you're working on a game this big and this complex, oftentimes you're fixing a thing over here and it'll like break a thing over here, right? And sometimes you don't know that until like a month later, right? And then it becomes like a bigger issue. But these guys are able to identify whenever these kind of insidious bugs creep up. They're able to find them, and then they like capture a video for it in a game, and then we can like immediately send it to one of our developers to fix. So it's really helped us with the polish level of not just this new battle group, but like the game overall. We're able to like catch these things immediately and get really good fixes in for them.
Okay. Do you have any examples of the stuff that you've seen over the last couple of months in terms of like, we were able to see this during our playtesting or during some of our design discussions, and we were able to resolve an issue or based on feedback, either internally or working with our closed group, to sort of say like, oh, okay, we thought this should have gone this way, but we realized, oh, actually this was a huge problem. We had to make this change. I'm wondering if you have any sort of examples of that.
Yeah, sure. So Fergie and I, we pushed for a specific change. I won't go into the details about it. We'll leave it as a surprise for the community. We pushed for a specific change, and originally we had a bit of a resistance, right? But eventually we got the change in. And to give you an idea, the thing that's nice about Fergie and I is Fergie is the better player. Like you said, he's won tournaments. I just make content and I just love the game. We both love the game, but he's a much better player than I am. And a good example is if we're doing a build, for example, we kind of know that a build is problematic if I can just execute the build and give Fergie a run for his money. Like if I'm beating him in 8 minutes nonstop on different maps, that's a pretty clear indication that there's something in my build that's too strong that even a player like Fergie can't like deal with. And so obviously if Fergie does the build against me, like I crumble in 5 minutes. So we did some changes, and to give you an idea, matches have gone from going from 8 to 15 minutes because Co 3 is a little shorter significantly shorter compared to Co 1 and Co 2. So matches typically are shorter, but to give you an idea, matches have gone from 8 to 12, 15 minutes. They now go from like 15 to 40 minutes sometimes.
Okay.
So that to us is a pretty good indication that this was a good change, because now the replay files are substantially longer, and we can actually it actually opens the door to tweaking some mid and late game units, because now we can actually get to that stage and gives us a better idea of what needs to be modified.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. Fergie, what about for yourself? Is there anything that you've sort of similarly seen over the course of the last few months in terms of like, oh, we caught this and that was a big problem? Or do you have any examples about like, changes that you wanted to see implemented and you're right, or maybe you were wrong? I'm kind of curious if you have any sort of anecdotes around that.
Since I'm working for a league, like this is my day and night, I am always thinking about like possible changes, what we can tweak on a unit, or that was the right change. Like with Dome, we are always thinking about like additional changes. But that was a really good example from Dome. He was actually a bit too nice towards me, so I would say I'm decent.
Yeah.
But recently. Our games like significantly improved. Nowadays we are playing like 30-40 minute games. So it's been a long way, but I think we are on the right track. So
okay, that's great to hear. So Eric, throwing it back to you. Obviously, one of the things that we want to ensure is like we have a fun game, we have better gameplay. Things are as balanced as they can be in a game as complex as Company of Heroes, with so many moving pieces and different factions and units. So long term, what's sort of the goal with this new process that we've implemented at the studio?
Well, you mentioned a little bit about like the confidence in the changes. So previously, we would like identify problem areas that we wanted to fix or update, but we knew like, well, we're gonna need to play test this for like a month, and we have all these other initiatives. So there were problems where we just kind of had to ignore them basically, or not address them, even though we knew we had a solution we liked, but in order to like actually like verify like this is going to fix it and not cause other knock-on items, we weren't able to do those changes. So now we're able to like put out changes because we know like, oh, okay, if these guys they hammer on it for a day or two, they'll be able to find the vast majority of like the issues that could come up on live. So we were able to both make more changes to the game and riskier changes to the game, right? So it gives us more flexibility in order to like address some of these like really deep-rooted core problems that are just hard to solve and time-consuming.
Yeah.
So I think our balance patches, they're including types of things that we hadn't really done before, and I think just like the volume is a bit higher as well. So I think we're just really excited about the future of just like the overall core gameplay is going to be more fun, and then also the additional DLC stuff that we've been doing with the battle groups is just a lot more. Not only is the balance of it tighter, but like I find the decision making a bit more compelling as well. When you have these A/B choices, I'm often like, oh, well, like this thing's really awesome and this thing's really awesome. Like, which one do I pick, right? So it's really cool to be playing this new set of battle groups with these guys and getting them, like they're in on our design meetings at the beginning where we're like, okay, here's our high level ideas. Like, does this make sense to you guys? Does this sound fun? And sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say no. So we're able to like start this iteration process at the very beginning.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And again, I think that's obviously important considering with the Endure and Defy battle group pack, we're trying like mechanics that haven't been present in the franchise ever, or like whole new systems that we've, experimented with for the first time. So again, I think, like you said, it gives us that confidence that like, hey, we can take these big swings with some of this stuff and see how it lands. And I think the other thing to note here is the Scarlet Bison update and these new battle groups would be the first big stuff that's coming out that will benefit from the inclusion of both Dume and Fergie on the team to validate a lot of that content. And hopefully, I guess fingers crossed, the hope is that with the future balance patches and updates that we're doing, that those are a lot tighter, require less sort of fixing after the fact. Obviously, there will always be things to fix and change. That's just the nature of
Still
video
not
games.
perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
But again, I think
we want to keep them employed as well, right? It needs to be just a little bit imperfect.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, gentlemen. So maybe we'll do some quick final thoughts. I'll throw it to you, Fergie, first. Final thoughts. Anything you want to impart to players, or just just how have you been feeling about everything, and what are you excited for players to see in the new update?
Well, the new battle groups are coming. I think they are amazing. Like, we had a ton of fun playing with them, tuning them every day. So we put a lot of work into them, and I am confident in our changes, and I think players going to enjoy and love the new content.
Okay. Same question to you, Dume. What are you hoping players, or what can players look forward to with this new stuff?
Obviously the new toys that are coming with the new DLC, that's always a nice addition. Like you guys said, there's a lot of new things that haven't been done in the franchise. So that, leave it to them to speculate what it could be. But also, not only is there new content, but we're getting a big balance patch as well. So that will, in my opinion, I'm pretty confident it's going to shake up the meta quite significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, how is that going to interact with the new content? That's always something that's going to always be interesting. We kind of have an idea how, I've already have a few theories how it could play out, but obviously we'll see what players can cook up on their end, because you get a lot of creative strategies out there. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Absolutely. Eric, any final thoughts? I know from my side, I think it's just been great having Fergie and Dume join the team. We have a habit of picking people out of the community, like Will and Jason and Darren. But any final thoughts before we wrap up for today?
I'm just really, really happy we're able to get both these guys, and they're just been killing it, and they're able to let us do things that we weren't able to do before, and like the game quality is just going up and up and up. So yeah, I'm just so grateful to have them, and really looking forward to all the future updates that we're going to be adding to code with them.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks so much, folks, for joining us today, and I think that'll be it for this segment, and we'll hopefully see you again real soon. And now I'm joined by Will Ward, and that means only one thing. Will, we must be talking about new maps.
Maps.
How you been? It's been a while since we've chatted with you.
You're busy.
Yeah,
good and busy.
Good. So, Will, with the Scarlet Bison update, I know we're going to be introducing the first wave of maps from GB Pirates' most recent map making competition, which started in late 2024, but resulted in a bunch of really excellent maps in May of this year. So I know since then you've been kind of going through cherry picking the ones that might be the best additions to the auto match pool, and working with those mappers to balance them, update them, tweak things, make fixes, and get them integrated. So I don't know if you want to talk about that process at all, or do you want to just jump right into the maps that we have here?
Yeah, sure. It's worth mentioning the mapping competition went very well. We had very, very good feedback back and forth for quite a long period of time. But when the maps were completed and the results came in, things did come in just a little bit too late. I think we got the results in May, and by that point, the patch was basically already locked down and there was no go. So as much as I have faith in our mappers, I didn't have enough faith that I could throw their maps into a patch at the last second. So we've been working in the background to get things spruced up and make sure everything's running smoothly. And yeah, now is the time to finally bear fruit.
Okay, so I believe we have 3 community-made maps from that competition that are going to be coming with Update 2.2 or Scarlet Bison, and then we have one of your own creation.
We do, yeah.
Okay.
Should we start with the communities?
Yeah, let's do that. So let's start with our 1v1.
Yes, so 1v1 is arguably the one I'm most excited for because it is so out there. It's Bologna, which is a 1v1 urban map by Brian. This is, I believe, Brian's debut. He made a big splash during the competition, and it's a very ambitious project to do. For a lot of folks who know the history of Co 1 and Co 2 and the maps that we had there, 1v1 urban maps are contentious. They usually cause a lot of sweaty palms and furrowed brows. But this is an excellent addition to that pool.
Okay.
It's one I've been so excited to finally get added to the game because we don't have anything like it.
Okay. So again, 1v1 urban map is a little bit contentious, a little bit like, oh, should I be worried about this? So can you maybe tell us a little bit about the map as we take a look at it here now? And then, what are some of the notable features or some of the design philosophy behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main reason why I wasn't concerned about adding this one in is it manages to work around a lot of the problems that urban maps bring. Urban maps have very narrow choke points, they have very strong garrisons, they have a lot of indestructible blockers. Things like ruins, for example, that don't get flattened in the same way that hedgerows or trees do. What Brian has managed to do with Bologna is create a nice blend of wide open spaces, these plazas and courtyards where the vast majority of the gameplay occurs, which feels like any other map, which is great. Has reduced the number of garrisonable buildings down to only a smattering, a handful of them really, and they aren't holding very, very core areas, so you can't use a single building to lock down, say, a fuel point. But what those buildings that do exist do manage to do is create interesting loops that you can use to outflank the enemy. You can use them to soft retreat back away from heavy weapons that you need to avoid, and then use them to circle back around and attack on the flanks. So it's a really, really good blend. It still plays more cagey than a very open rural map would, but it doesn't play like an urban map at all, which is fantastic.
Okay. So has this map changed at all since it was first introduced during the mapping competition on the workshop? I'm just kind of curious, how did we get it ready for the official map pool?
So Brian did an exceptional job during the competition, and the reason why it placed as well as it did, because he received a lot of feedback and he worked on it. And this map has received a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So very, very little of the core map has changed since I got my hands on it, and since I was working with Brian collaboratively. Little things like the territory layout has been adjusted, which is always the case. We've gone through with a fine-tooth comb and made sure that the cover placement is as fair and as interesting as can be. For example, we had a look at some of the engagement spaces. There were some areas that you walked into where there just wasn't enough cover to make it worth the risk of entering that space, so we added a little bit more. We took some cover away from some areas, which were the opposite, where there was just too much,
right,
where you could leapfrog perfectly across the map, for example. Mm-hmm. So there has been quite a lot of work that's gone into it since, but the vast majority of the work was all Brian's that was done during the competition.
Okay. So as a player, again, urban 1v1s aren't necessarily the norm, so how should I be approaching my matches on this map?
So it is still going to be an urban map at its heart. So things like flamethrowers, mines, barbed wire are going to play a very big role in this. Light vehicles will still have their heyday, but that day will be shorter than normal because they won't have the ability to free reign. Things like creating kill zones and kill boxes with AT guns will be very, very important. And having ambush units. So anything that is camouflage, for example, will be very, very strong on this map because there are already the presence of heavy cover and craters, things like that you can use to your advantage, whereas rural maps that have very limited or sparse cover don't really have that much.
Okay, so I do have a quick word here from Brian. So he notes, working on Bologna was an incredibly exciting process. Designing an urban 1v1 map that's both unique and balanced for competitive play proved to be quite the challenge. I owe huge thanks to the mapping community and to everyone who provided feedback through the mapping competition. Your input was invaluable. It was also a real pleasure collaborating with Will. His insights and feedback at key stages of development made a big difference. I hope everyone enjoys playing Bologna as much as I enjoyed creating it. So Will, any final thoughts on Bologna before we get to the next one?
Just that I hope everyone enjoys as much as I've enjoyed testing it. We've had some of our most competitive players dabbling away on it, and it's all good news there. And I'm sure Brian will be very pleased to hear that the central tower is going nowhere. You'll know what I mean when you see it.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about our 2v2 from the Sphinx.
Yes, this is Wadi Dana. This is our winner of GB Pirates mapping competition. And with good reason. It is a Sphinx map, so you already know straight away you are getting very, very high quality visuals. This map is very unique, very pretty, and was just an instant ad. We had to have this one. It had to make its way in.
Okay, so tell me about Wadi Dana. Set it up for us.
So Wadi Dana is a very barren desert map. It is based around kind of three core areas. You have the central ruins, which are all sand-baked and dusty, very, very bleak. You've got a ruined village to the southeast, and then you have the river and a little bit of lush greenery to the northwest. It is essentially like a 3-lane 2v2 map. So the teams are going to be split as to where their attention can be. It's not too big that you can't cover the entire map in one game, but you are going to be hard pressed. So it does kind of tug of war you across where you need to hold. It's very well designed.
Okay. So as we're looking at it here, I'm curious, similarly, what sort of changes might this map have gone through since the last time players saw it during the mapping competition?
So as with Bologna, this map didn't have to receive too many heavy changes. The majority of the changes actually were more to do with permanent cover, which is something that we don't actually encounter very often. The majority of the cover in our maps is destructible. So things like brick walls and trees, they can all be knocked down and they can be crushed. Even things like tank traps that are heavy crush, we put them in sparingly and they get removed eventually as the game goes on. But we added with Co 3 a number of rocks which are permanent. We have to use them sparingly and very carefully. They tend to make more of an appearance in North Africa maps because North Africa is sand and stone and very little of anything else. So when we're playing around North Africa maps, we're usually very careful about the pathfinding. For example, we were finding that small pockets of rocks were causing vehicles to have to do pivots and winds, which is undesirable. So just replacing some of those, making sure that the map flows nicely. Because the map also has central ruins, there are a number of indestructible ruined walls that the players will kind of engage around. So just making sure that we cut as many of those corners as possible to make sure that vehicles don't have to stop and pivot before they can move somewhere else. Little things like that won't necessarily break the game, but just make the experience feel better. And just shaving off a little bit of the annoyance that might come with playing on maps that have, indestructible features. Okay.
So you mentioned earlier that this map essentially has 3 lanes. So for a 2v2, how should my team be approaching, our tactics and strategy on this map?
It does entirely depend on your composition and how you like to play. So, for example, the center is always going to be the most important part to hold, and that's quite close quarters. So you are going to be relying on things like grenades, flamethrowers, and CQC squads. So your squads with SMGs, like your assault grenadiers or your assault engineers, your sappers. The east side of the map has quite long sightlines. This is like a road that bisects the ruins with a ruined village. So things like AT guns and HMGs will be favored there, but it has a lot of blind spots too. Because it's got ruins in it, there are sight blockers that infantry can use to outflank these team weapons. If you want to play more vehicle heavy, then the northwest side, which has got this river and a bit of lush overgrowth, is definitely more favoured towards you, because most of what's around there is crushable by light vehicles. So if you want to go for your early 250 rush, or you want to get scout cars, greyhounds, that's the area to play your light vehicles a little bit more heavy, and then you can do deep dives behind the ruins and cut the enemy off.
Okay. So quick word here from the Sphinx. They note, with Wadi Dana, I wanted to realize a few ideas, like the crashed bomber plane, inspired from a real photo from World War II, the custom-made wooden bridges, the blue water wadis, say that 3 times fast, and a ruin in the middle. With feedback from the mapping competition and from Will, it only required a few more changes to get it ready for auto match and for all the players. Any final thoughts on Wadi Dana?
As always, I really do hope folks enjoyed this one. This was our winner, and with good reason. It scored exceptionally well. The visuals are incredible. The gameplay is great. I think this will become a classic in no time.
Okay. And of course, not to ignore our 4v4 crowd. We've got a great 4v4 from Dutch Toast.
Yes, this is Oliveto Citra, which is it's a big map. I don't know how Dutch does it. I mean, 4v4 maps are no joke. This is a beast of a map. Oliveto Citra has very similar visuals to Dutch's other map, which we released back in Opal Scorpion, which was Red Ball Express. So it's very fall, very autumnal, lots of mud, but is actually more reminiscent of is it Route N13 from Co 1 for those really old players back there. You might see some similarities in it. It's a very, very beautiful map with a lot of very long hedgerows. So it is pulling on that classic Co 1 style of gameplay where you have a lot of heavy crush lines that can be opened up as the game progresses. But early on, it's cagey, it's dense, there's a lot of close quarters combat, and there's a lot of variety. Because it's a 4v4 map, there's a lot of different areas that the players have to play across. So every single time that you play it, you're going to be playing in a slightly different area.
Okay. So how did this map evolve since the mapping competition? What work have you done with Dutch Toast here?
So as with the rest of our competition winners, this was already very high standard. This came in very good, but there were a lot of notables, as they usually are with 4v4s, that we have to be careful of. Performance being the main one. So I worked with Dutch quite closely to make sure that performance was improved as much as possible. We looked into things like the number of splats that were being used, the number of FX markers, because there's a lot of things like falling leaves or birds on this map that just need to be culled and brought back. And just making sure that visibility was very good. Because this map uses a lot of hedgerows, I wanted to ensure that any area that was permanently uncrushable looked taller, broader, made it look as though a heavy tank like a King Tiger, for example, could never crush this. But the hedgerows that are meant to be flattened could be visually distinguished from them. So we did a little bit of back and forth, just making sure there were some areas that were cleaned up. But again, because this is a 4v4 map, you're way more likely to come across this sort of thing. It's a lot of map to fill. So I do appreciate all of the time that Dutch put into this. It's a lot of effort.
Yeah, so I imagine like most of our 4v4 maps, you can kind of employ any strategy you want based on your faction and battle groups and your team composition. But do you have any sort of tips and tricks on what to look out for or what to prioritize here on this map?
Yeah, as mentioned, because there are so many different areas, there's some versatility in what you'll be required or at least encouraged to bring. So, for example, in the north, you have the manor house, so you've got long hedgerows, beautiful open gardens and fields, and a big garrisonable structure. In all likelihood, you're going to be benefiting from having your long-range weaponry here, things like your Jaegers, your Aussies, your HMGs, AT guns, and then hopefully later on down the line, bringing in things like heavy crush, like your Matildas or your bulldozers, to try and flatten that and open those areas, make those weapons stronger. But as you go towards the middle, you've got a military emplacement, which is definitely going to benefit more of the CQC. So you'll want to have things like your flamethrowers, have mines to cover the roads and the access points. Indirect fire will be very useful. And then towards the south, you've got a logging site, which is built into the forest, which is lots of scattered light and heavy cover. Not quite as CQC as the middle, not quite as many site blockers. So that will be more of your generalist fight. But because this map is very long as well, players should be expected to take deep dives and benefit from it using cutoffs and jumping for enemy territory. There's a lot of map, a lot of space, so you can easily work your way around behind enemy lines if you play well.
Okay. A couple words here from Dutch Toast. He says, Oliveto Citra started life as a 3v3 for the mapping competition, with the goals of being based on an actual location, being made for competitive play, being balanced for either side, and for each player to have a distinct look and feel to their play area. During the final phases of the mapping competition, Bacon and the Relic team provided crucial insights to improve the map and suggested to turn it into a 4v4 as there was ample space. I'd like to give a shout out to Foolish Viceroy, the Co-World Builders Discord, and the Relic team for their support and feedback. and for spending time to get it ready for integrating into the game. I hope you'll have as much fun playing it as I had making it. Final thoughts on Oliveto Citra?
I'm so glad he had fun making it. 44 maps, really no joke. Yeah, no, everything you said is absolutely spot on. And his comment about how it started as a 3v3 and we encouraged kind of moving it towards a 4v4 is something that will come up a little bit later.
Oh, okay.
There's a running theme here, but
Little teaser. Okay.
it definitely is more suited to a 4v4, but that doesn't mean that going back to a 3v3 version is off the table.
Right. Okay, Will, let's get into the map that you created for Scarlet Bison for our 2.2 update here. Tell me about Powder Keg.
Yes, so this is another map that's been on the back burner for a long time and has finally come to fruition because it just made sense. With the upcoming Partisans, I wanted to have a map that they could call theirs. A map that was suited basically from the ground up for Partisan gameplay or even Commando gameplay for that matter. So I wanted to have a almost like a township built onto a hill, like so many are in Italy, with all of their agriculture, their groves and their vineyards built around the outside on the hillsides, just taking the advantage of the geography that they have. But I also wanted to try and tell a story with this map. Many of the books and cases that I've read into with the Partisans, they usually refer to the bloodshed that happened as soon as Italy capitulated, and that sudden tension that broke when allies in Italy and Germany suddenly became enemies. And soldiers, Italian soldiers who were now retiring home and had been disarmed, were being smuggled by their families back because they were otherwise being forced into labor elsewhere in Europe. Right. So it's that sudden, desperate struggle, the partisan efforts that had been building during this time, well aware that the Allies were coming, but then all of a sudden they have to start acting now. Otherwise they lose all the weaponry that the Italian army is retiring with. They lose their husbands and their brothers and their sons. So it's the powder keg in this case is referring to that sudden fuse that is lit. And the need to act now. So this map, Powder Keg, is based around this township that has only just started seeing combat, and you are coming in the aftermath of those early skirmishes. It's a story I've wanted to tell for a very long time in maps, and I'm glad to finally be able to do so.
Okay, that sounds really exciting. And I do like that you can infuse a lot of that narrative into the maps themselves. New map, like you said, is very, very focused and based on the new Italian Partisans battle group, some of the commandos that we already have in the game. How should we be approaching our matches on this 4v4 map?
So the benefit of how this map is designed is it does allow you to do basically anything that you want. The map center, granted, is focused on a very urban design. There's lots of buildings, but granted with a very large open plaza. In fact, several plazas throughout the map that you can take advantage of. But garrison gameplay is going to be quite dense within the very center of the map. However, the rest of the map is all open agriculture. So there's more opportunity than ever to strafe around the entire area. You don't even need to push into the map center if you don't want to. You can focus entirely on either piercing straight through the middle or going around the outsides. The cutoffs on this map are very, very harsh.
Okay.
They essentially cut you off from everything, or almost everything on this map. But they are at the top of the hill, basically on the outskirts of the township. So players, if they are aggressive enough, if they can force their way through enough, can close games quite quickly. Unlikely, considering there's 4 other players waiting on either side, but it's possible. But yeah, I wanted to have a map where there is one focus, one style of gameplay in the very center, and then everything else around the outskirts. There's plenty of room to build your artillery, your emplacements, to run amok with light vehicles or even fast and medium tanks. So lots of different gameplay opportunities in a map like this, but those cutoffs are key.
Okay, sounds great. And again, just looking at the map, it looks fantastic, and I'm really excited to see players, getting some time with it as well. Can you tell me about, or just wrap up any final thoughts, anything you're excited to see from players once they get into Powder Keg?
I mean, this map, because it was intended to be played with some of the new battle groups, especially the Partisans, I'm mostly interested in seeing how people do engage with it with those new tools. it's going to be very, very interesting. Partisans especially are going to have a field day on this map, but equally so will our other subterfuge or espionage style battle groups. This will be their heyday. Also, massive thanks to Sandra, one of our map artists who came on board to help out with this in the very last minute. I tried to get this map entirely over the line myself, and too many things got in the way. So Sandra graciously stepped up and helped me finish things off. So thank you, Sandra.
Okay, that's awesome. So I think that does it for our new maps, but I know, Will, there's still more to talk about in the map world, because you've been chipping away and looking at some of the existing maps that we have, because I know you always like to improve what's there, maybe change some things, spice things up. So what do you have in store for Scarlet Bison?
Yes, yeah, I'm always dabbling through the maposphere. Looking at our data, looking at things like downvotes on the quick match queue just to see which ones are not playing so popular. Looking at the how the factions are swaying some maps back and forth. And it's been apparent for a long time that there are some maps that just aren't as popular as others. There's a niche, granted. So maps like Semois, Road to Primasol, and one of our more recent community maps, Jebel Pass, stand out as three maps that just rank a lot lower than I would like them to in their respective categories. They're still good maps, but their main problem, their consistent main problem, was that they're the wrong size for the number of players they have on them.
Okay.
So I did an investigation quite early on into the patch cycle to add more players to each one and adjust their territory, maybe even do minor adjustments to their cover if necessary, just to see how they played out. And I'm very, very pleased to report that all three, Semois, Jebel Pass, and Road to Brimsol, are all being given a new variant with additional players. So Semois will have a 1v1 and a 2v2 version. Jebel Pass will also have a 1v1 and a 2v2 version. And Road to Brimsol will have a 2v2 and a 3v3 version.
Okay. So the originals aren't going away. Those will still be available in the map pool. But we're obviously experimenting with these resizes. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's worth saying that while some players might want to see some of the older maps go away because it gives you more downvotes, there are still contingents of players who stay on those old ones. They still have their place. Granted, it's not as many as the most popular maps in those categories, but I'm reluctant to remove something that is still enjoyed by some. There may come a day when that changes, like if we bring in a slew of new maps for 1v1, for example, and there's space to start taking out some of the bottom of the barrel, then we can do that. But yeah, for now, especially since this is an experiment, I want to see how these new maps are received and go from there. In our internal tests, though, even with some of our competitive players, these new upsized maps have been received very, very well. So I'm very, very hopeful.
Yeah, we were just doing some private playtesting with players, and as you mentioned, the feedback around these resizes has been quite good. So I'll be excited for the public to see them as well. Any notables here? Any special callouts for these resizes, or do you want to leave it for players to sort of discover things on their own?
No, I think it's definitely worth letting players have a blind playthrough on it. Just see how things feel to you. We didn't do this willy-nilly. We went in with this thinking this is the best thing for all these maps, because we could have spent the time instead creating something brand new. But these are time-efficient changes, and I definitely think they're the right step for these maps. In fact, I would say in the case of all three, they are now my preferred way to play these maps.
Okay, that's great to hear. So before we wrap up, Will, any other sort of final changes or tweaks that you've been making that you wanted to call out here?
Yeah, there's been plenty of changes, as always. On our official Discord, we do have a map feedback section, and players over time do drop in little snippets. Please continue to do so. Our maps are never going to be perfect. Things will always change. So please just continue to send in anything you see. Ideally, if you have screenshots or even little diagrams of things that you've noticed that are wrong, that helps me dramatically. I don't tend to get onto this map feedback until right near the end of our patch cycle, because technically speaking, it's the lowest priority stuff I have to work on. But that also means by that time I have loads of stuff culminated together, so I get to make some changes. Notable standouts are the territory on both versions of Road to Primasol has been changed. We're pulling the fuel away from the north side of the map, which is really far out of the way, pulling things more towards the center. So instead of having what essentially devolved into 2 separate 1v1s, or in the new case, a 2v2 and a 1v1, the players in the north are no longer holding half the resources.
Right.
They're holding less than half. The majority of it is towards the center and the south now, which is the easier part of the map to reach. Tuscan Vineyards has also received a lot of cover changes, loads of adjustments to things like the vineyards, which were causing problems for ultralight vehicles. They couldn't reach the cutoff points very early in the game until those vineyards got knocked over. In fact, on that note, a lot of our maps had minor pathfinding bugs with ultralight vehicles. It turns out wherever we hand paint in-pass under things like cliffs, we needed to go through and hand paint ultralight in-pass. So there's some cases where Kettenkrads and weasels and whatever were driving into cliffs and hiding. Now you know about the exploit. We've fixed it, so nah.
And if you want to learn more about painting impasse, you can check out the Map Making 101 series that Will and I did on our YouTube channel.
Very smooth. Yeah, but no, other than that, it's minor changes. Like, thankfully, we're at a point in Code3's life cycle where there aren't major changes to be done to maps. It's usually very minor tweaks, little things that pop up. So I'm still very grateful for everything that comes in. Keep it up. Never stop.
Okay. That's really exciting, Will. So some great changes, some resizes to some existing maps, plus 3 community maps and Powder Keg from the Maestro himself, all coming in Update 2.2 Scarlet Bison. So lots to look forward to. Thanks so much, Will. And I think we'll talk to you a little bit later in the show. All right, and now I'm joined by a couple of our wonderful game designers to talk about some of the gameplay improvements that are going to be coming in the Scarlet Bison update. Let's go around the room, do some intros, but these should be familiar faces. Let's start with Jason.
Hello, I'm Jason. I'm a gameplay designer on Company Heroes 3.
And Darren.
Yep. Hello, my name's Darren Chen. I'm also one of the gameplay designers on Company of Heroes 3.
Okay, so as a reminder, we are going to have a balanced fireside chat with these 2 gentlemen the week of the release. So I believe that's going to be happening on November 25th. So stay tuned for that live stream where we'll be answering your questions, talking much more in depth about multiplayer balance and the new battle groups. But today we're going to kind of keep things high level. Jason, do you want to maybe talk about some of your goals for the Scarlet Bison update and maybe some of the general gameplay improvements that you and Darren wanted to make this time around?
Yeah. This patch, we've focused quite a lot on some multiplayer balance overhauls for a lot of things, but we've also made some gameplay improvements to some of the existing systems in the game. Like we've mentioned kind of in the past, we're kind of still doing a pass through the game, improving a lot of like systems that we've introduced on launch, but probably could benefit from some improvements. So we've done a few here and there. So today we'll be talking about some of them.
Okay. So I guess we should probably just jump right into them. Darren, do you want to queue us up for the first one that we want to talk about here?
Yep. So one of the first improvements we've managed to get in for this patch is we've done some improvements to tank riding and just vehicle loading in general to make it feel better for the player. So the first one regarding tank riding specifically is units will now follow the attack move command of the tank they unload from. So let's say you get hit by an anti-tank gun at long range. Previously, your infantry would get off and just get left behind by the tank as it would move up. Now, if you attack move towards that anti-tank gun in the distance, when those units disembark from the vehicle, those infantry will also follow that vehicle's attack command and follow up behind the vehicle.
Okay, great. Yeah, so they'll no longer sort of be just standing there looking confused.
So yeah, you should be able to use like multiple vehicles and multiple infantry units together and kind of attack positions with them. And they'll be more intelligent, essentially, when they do that.
Okay. Any other changes to the tank riding improvements?
Not tank riding itself, but for vehicle unloading. Now, we still slow the vehicle heavily when we give you a load command for infantry into a vehicle, but now the vehicle will no longer just like come to a complete halt. It'll keep some of its momentum while the infantry load up before returning to its full speed, so it will get vehicles moving a little bit faster from before, or when infantry load in.
Okay, that's great. So Jason, these next ones, I had to read them a couple times so I could actually understand it. So can you talk about some of the reinforcement improvements that we have coming here?
So we have allowed or we've made an improvement where infantry cannot be reinforced when they are inside of a hold. So this means if you have infantry garrisoned in a building, or if you have infantry loaded up on a vehicle or inside a half track, for example, you will be able to reinforce them if you have a reinforced source nearby. So you can do things where you can put units in like the Africa Corps 250 half track in the base, and they will reinforce while they're in the back of the vehicle. Other examples is like you can have the medical bunker near a garrison building, and you will be able to reinforce infantry inside that building.
Okay, very cool. Anything else with hold improvements or how units are reinforced there?
Yeah, so yeah, we've also made some minor improvements where the constructed holds that you build, so bunkers, fighting positions, when these are destroyed and you have infantry inside of them, they no longer roll death criticals, essentially. So normally, when you lose a infantry squad in a vehicle, there's a chance that each soldier dies when the vehicle explodes. But we've removed this off of garrison buildings to kind of promote more garrison gameplay with these units.
Okay, so it'll theoretically be less deadly for me.
Yes.
Should I lose a position?
So you're now
in,
you're
like,
now
a
more
garrison hold?
incentivized to stick inside the building to the end, where before like you're around like maybe 50, 25%, you will just bail out the garrison and just not use it at that point because it's just too dangerous
Right.
to use.
We want to essentially, with a lot of these changes, streamline using infantry in conjunction with both vehicles and buildings.
Yeah.
Primarily vehicles with the previous changes as well, but hopefully there are more tactics available to, when you have both of these units together.
Okay. Darren, what about some of the next changes here to pathing?
So I believe the biggest change we made to pathfinding is now, in the majority of cases, your vehicle should no longer be able to clip through an enemy vehicle unless like there's absolutely no other way for the vehicle to path through. So before you would often have like, 3 Crusaders charging a King Tiger frontally. One of the Crusaders, while the King Tiger is trying to back up, would just phase completely through the tank and get to its rear. That should no longer happen in most cases.
Yeah.
I believe is
Yeah.
the major change.
We've been playing around this with a bit. On launch, it was a very hard block, but this would cause issues if you had bridges or if you have enclosed spaces. So there is still phasing, and essentially the way it works is hostile units, so yours and the enemies, will be much less likely to phase through each other.
Gotcha.
Your units will still be able to phase through themselves, so between allies, mostly because it just causes a lot of different kind of movement bugs when we disable that. But for example, some tactics that you should be able to do now is, say you find a enemy King Tiger out of position, you can block the escape path of this vehicle by parking one of your vehicles behind it.
Right.
Now, to your peril, or to that unit's peril, but you will be able to do these kind of tactics now.
Okay, so it's a bit of a happy middle ground in terms of like you're not going to have your convoys get all caught up on each other going through a narrow path, but you can still body block enemy units and counter them that way. Okay.
We still have a few exceptions in the game. For example, if it's a bridge, or essentially if there's no other reasonable path, so it's like not across the whole map, like a bridge, units will still be able to phase through each other. But in more general cases, like on an open field, if you park one of your vehicles behind an enemy, that vehicle will have to path around your vehicle.
Okay, cool. So any other sort of changes that you want to discuss, or do we kind of want to maybe give a bit of a sneak peek about what else we're going to be discussing in the next couple of weeks here?
Yeah, we can get into the sneak peek. Like we mentioned earlier, we've spent a lot of effort on some of the overhauls for this balance patch. One of the major things we are doing is a overhaul of the DAC Armory.
Ooh, okay.
And this has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
We've wanted to make changes for this faction for quite a long time. And this is also made alongside changes to essentially all of the DAC infantry as well. Combined Arms has been reworked, and essentially the balance of the faction has been slightly reworked, so that players have more options in both in terms of using the Africa Corps and also fighting against them. But we'll dive into more detail on that later on. But I think we'll probably give a sneak peek of the armory looks very different now.
It will look very different,
Yes.
So just stay tuned for all that, because a lot of changes are coming to what you're gonna see.
You want to cover the next one?
Yep, we also got a few more additional changes that we will be hinting at. We'll have a particular change, probably some people have called for a long time. In particular, it's the changes to heavy tanks. We won't exactly say what we're changing about heavy tanks, but we are touching at least the generalist heavies that are available in the game. And we also have I want to give this one away.
Like, I mean, one of the ones is like vehicles and infantry. We've noted that, especially in team games, the power level between, especially later on, infantry and vehicles to be a little bit off. Not just in the late game, in all phases, and also not just in team games and 1v1 as well. So we've made a few adjustments across the board to make it so that infantry, particularly, again, later on, have more of a role to play than currently. Again, there'll still be we still want to promote combined arms, and vehicles will still be very valuable because you have to earn the field to build them, but just not quite to the same extent as it is now.
Okay. And the last one here, it sounds like we might be going back and looking at some of the existing battle groups.
Yep. So this patch has given us some time to look at some of the existing battle groups. One in particular has been looked at more than the others. So that do I want to give away the name for that one or no?
Sure.
So you'll find when we talk about it, armored is going to be quite a bit different in terms of its layout.
U.S. armored.
U.S. armored, yes.
Yeah.
U.S. not British armored. U.S. armored.
Yeah.
It will look quite a bit different, but there's also quite a few improvements to some of the other battle group abilities, depending on which battle group it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, stay tuned because we'll talk about these in quite in detail in the fireside chat.
Got a lot of changes coming.
Okay. And as a reminder, that's going to be happening on November 25th. So that'll be a couple days before Scarlet Bison update and the Endure and Defy DLC pack actually go out. So stay tuned for that and join us on Twitch so you can watch that live and ask your questions to both of these gentlemen here on the couch. So I think we can wrap things up there. Jason, Darren, thanks so much. Really looking forward to our more in-depth chat on multiplayer balance. So we will talk to you then. We're joined once again by Will Ward to talk about some of the new voice acting and dialogue that's going to be accompanying the Endure and Defy Battle Group DLC pack and the 2.2 Scarlet Bison update. Will, you have sort of segued over your time here at Relic into really being hands-on with a lot of the voice acting and voiceover stuff that is happening on the game. So maybe you can give us a little bit of background on that, and then we can talk about some of the new stuff that's going to be coming in this update.
Yeah, sure. Kind of weird how it happened. It's not how I imagined game development would go. But when I joined Relic back in 2020, I was helping out early on with some of the gameplay designs. I was obviously doing map work, but there was more downtime between those things early in those days. Maps, for example, I would do something, pass it off to an artist and go, now what? So I started dabbling with some of the writing. We were using external writers early in development, and they weren't up to snuff. So I started taking some of that on myself, enjoyed it considerably, and then started helping out with some of the voiceover recordings. Because we were in the pandemic, instead of the traditional, you go to the studio and you record in person and do it all in one batch, we were doing it piecemeal, like for weeks and weeks at a time. In fact, I think we did about 6 months straight of recordings in the UK, in the US, and in Germany. So I was taking part in those, helping out with direction and making sure that context was kind of correct, and eventually ended up writing basically every line we have of unit dialogue in the game. For better or worse. I'm sure most people can blame me for several lines. There are at least some good ones, I'm sure.
Yeah. So obviously we have some new characters coming in the Endure and Defy DLC pack. Obviously, some of the battle groups will have all new units, so they need all new dialogue, and I imagine all new actors to voice that dialogue. So can you maybe talk about either that process of getting those things recorded, or maybe even some of the new characters coming in? However you want to go about this, I'll let you lay it out for us.
So what would normally happen is in the development of a battle group, we'll have a look at what would be essentially a core new unit. This would be a completely brand new bespoke character, and then we'll have a look at almost like an augmentation or a side character. So, for example, where we're introducing our Polish characters, which I'll speak to in a moment, we want to have completely new VO. We have no Polish characters in the game. We can't really pull any strings there other than get something new in. But we have other characters like our artillery observers of the past, or our pathfinders, for example, our assault engineers, and in the case of this future update, our stern pioneers. They will use the existing VO from an existing character, but we will bring them back in for pickups, and we will get them new, unique dialogue that just continues their roster a little bit.
Right.
But for the new characters, what we will usually do is write them up a character bio. So it'll be a short story about their history. It'll usually be based on real people and real testimonies. So, for example, our Polish Lancer, who we're introducing in the Polish Cavalry Battle Group, his name is Władysław. His backstory is he joined the army as young as he could, took battle in the Battle of Poland as expected, was imprisoned, was shipped off to the Soviet Union. He happened to be on the east side of Poland when Poland capitulated. And his story is one about being moved through Persia to North Africa to be retrained under the British. Very, very vigorous, very youthful, but at that point, grizzled. Has seen defeat, has yet to taste victory, and is extremely eager to make sure that Poland has a seat at the table at the end of the war. The kind of the person who is driven to take the most extreme options in order to make sure Poland has made this imprint. Similarly, we have our Firefly, Václav, and his driver Tadeusz, who you'll definitely hear plenty of complaints about. Their story is very similar, more tragic in this case. Václav loses most of his family, lots of friends and compatriots, isn't a soldier at all, but is recruited as one. He's a machinist. And is given the opportunity to become a tank commander because of his technical expertise in the field. Generally far more bitter, far more vengeful, which is a theme that we're running with the Polish. So that is something that our talent in the studio is given opportunity to read through. That helps inform their direction when they're playing those characters. And then we just let them loose. Let them go wild with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I imagine they had a lot of fun recording some of these lines. I was listening to some of the idle lines, which are always amusing, and there's some really good ones in there.
Yeah, it's exceptional how much talent there is out there as well. Like some of the people that we've used are so into these characters. It's great fun.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about our Kriegsmariner?
Yes. So I mentioned that we also do recordings of out of Germany as well. But on occasion, we also happen to find Germans in the UK, which was the case this time around. Our Kriegsmariner, Maximilian, he's a disciplinarian on a U-boat, a boatswain, I think it's called, who is grounded. His U-boat takes a hit off the coast of Gibraltar. Mm-hmm. He's grounded in Tunisia, and him and his remaining crew, of which there are very few, are essentially assigned to shore duties. There they remain essentially until the net starts closing around Tunis, and they are eventually captured. And then he's, based on a real person again, he's then shipped off to Canada, where he spends out the rest of the war. But that also helps inform that this character is a very strict, disciplined sailor who's been assigned to a duty he doesn't want. He would much rather be at sea. So he's a little bedraggled, downbeaten. Unlike the rest of the DAC, he's not faced as many victories. He's had more defeats. So you'll see that come through in his personality.
Okay, that's exciting. I'm sure we'll get a lot of comments about our pronunciation of some names and titles. Boatswain, I can never get that one right. But it sounds like the recording was really fun this time around, Will. I see a note here that you recorded over 2,000 lines of dialogue.
We did, yes. And as mentioned, we also went back and recorded pickups. So all of our Intel characters for the 4 factions, they had additional sessions to give you, new context lines for the things that are being played in the new battle groups. We recorded new dialogue with existing actors to fill in some of the other roles as well. But yeah, 2,000 lines. It's a fair bit.
Yeah. I will also note that on a personal note, I was really excited when we decided on introducing the Polish cavalry battle group, as my grandfather was from Poland and served in the Polish army during the war. Much like one of our characters, spent a lot of it in Soviet prison camps. Then, when they were released, reformed under the British Army, worked his way through North Africa, up into Italy, before coming to Canada after the war. I will say thank you very much, Will, for including some nods to my grandfather. Won't tell you what those are. I will save those for myself and my family, but I just know that they're in there. So thank you very much, Will, for that.
A pleasure.
Okay. Any other sort of wrap up? Any final notes on the recording sessions or these new characters?
Nothing really, except as always, I hope everyone enjoys. They've been great fun. This is easily one of my favorite parts of the job. I look forward to doing more of it in the future. But yeah, enjoy, and can't wait for everyone to sink their teeth into it.
Okay. Thanks so much, Will. That'll do it for today. As always, to stay up to date on all the latest Company of Heroes news, be sure to follow us on your platform of choice: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, and Twitch at Company of Heroes. Or you can join the Discord server at discord.gg/Relic Entertainment. The Scarlet Bison 2.2 update patch notes will go up on Steam the morning of November 27th, so be sure to keep an eye out for those. And of course, that same day, our new battle groups will be available on the Steam store in the Endure and Defy DLC pack. Stay tuned for next week's closer look at the new battle groups, and thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.